sharing stories of faith, hope, and inspiration. This is the Sunday Blessings Podcast.
Welcome to the Sunday Blessings Podcast. I'm Jay Hildebrandt, and I'm here with Jim Conan, co-owner of Conan Heating and Air Conditioning. If you've lived in Eastern Idaho, you may have seen him on some of their commercials over the years. But when he's not fixing air conditioners or tuning up furnaces, you may see Jim in some unexpected places. He's been in several scripture-based movies as an extra. So first of all, Jim, tell me about some of the films that you've been in.
Initially, it started off with the New Testament videos that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints produced down in Goshen, Utah. And that progressed after probably 2 to 3 years of shooting those into a couple of the Book of Mormon videos, and they progressed on with most of those now and other things. But that was, I had never really intended to do that. But as I saw in my own case, the opportunity came, and so it wasn't a bucket list thing by any stretch, but if opportunity came, so I took it.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit more about that later, but I want to first kind of, and you were in The Chosen, which is probably one of the...
I did one day's shoot for that, which was still fascinating, on the same set as the church's videos.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Well, we'll talk more about that, but first I want to go back a little in time and talk about you, your life, your career, your business. Where'd you grow up?
Right here in Idaho Falls, on the south side of town, not too far from Taffas Park. I grew up there and raised completely here in town. Did 2 years at Rick's College. In between, I did missionary service in Madrid, Spain, and followed suit from there and spent my entire career basically here in town beyond that point till now.
So it's a family business.
Family business, founded by my father in 1947, hence 75 years plus now. So we've got quite a legacy going here and hope to maintain it for some time to come.
Right. So I remember years ago seeing you and your family members with someone portraying Dave Lennox. Maybe it was Dave Lennox on the commercials for his products.
That was an interesting experience, and we did several of those over the years with him until he retired in 2016. But that was a great experience for us to be involved with the icon of the Lennox Industries, Dave Lennox per se, and what a great experience it was.
So you had some experience being on camera, but tell me how this all came about, that somehow you got to be an extra in all these biblical movies. And I suspect that the beard, especially the big bushy beard you had back then, made you perfect typecasting for that kind of era with the ancient disciples and prophets and everything.
Well, in this case, I'd just been called to be executive secretary in the ward, and one of my assignments from the bishop was to, if any flyer came, poster, I was the one who was assigned to post that outside the bishop's office wall. One particular flyer came, and it was regarding working as an extra in church video productions, the New Testament per se at this time. Mm-hmm. I placed that on the wall and didn't pay a lot of attention to it for at least 2 to 3 months, although it was always across the hall from me while I was there while the bishop was doing interviews.
Yeah.
Finally, a few months later, I said, well, I got up because I was tired of sitting there and looked at some of the flyers and saw the information on there, and all one had to do was go to the website, check it out, and register if you wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, whatever.
Did you have to send a picture or anything? Or?
Not at that point.
Okay.
You could if you wanted to, they'd never call me anyway. So it was at least 2 months after that, I thought, well, okay, I'll go to the site, see what it's about, and see if it piques any interest. Well, I went there and still not thinking I would ever get called by any stretch of the imagination, but I registered, sent a picture, and it was still several months after that before I finally received an email, not thinking I ever would, that I had made the first cut. And Jay, I didn't know there were cuts to make.
You hadn't even really auditioned other than sending your picture.
No, and so obviously it said no experience necessary. Well, I definitely qualified on the no experience part. So, having done the final parts of the registration and think, well, we'll see what happens. 2.5 months after that, instantly I received an email saying I was invited down to a particular shoot where the wise men were coming into Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you'll accept this invitation, we'd be glad to have you. I accepted it, and I ended up on, that was my first shoot.
Wow. So there's this amazing set, which is used for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Bible videos and Book of Mormon videos. And then at some point, The Chosen also used that very same set also. Where is that? And what did it look like when you saw it?
That's an experience all by itself, how The Chosen ended up in there. But if one were to travel to get to that set down I-15 to the Santa Quin exit, turn right, and approximately 13 miles past that stop sign, turning right into Santa Quin, there is a four-way stop in a small community called Alberta. Turning south, left at that point, going 2 miles down the road south, there's a sign that said LDS Motion Picture Studios, if I recall exactly how it's expressed it. Turn left here, and so if you see that sign, look up the hill to the left, you see a facility. And I understand part of it is the church dairy facility, and they were able to actually maintain some of the animals used in the set, in the videos at that facility. And to the left side is the parking lot for what they called the Jerusalem set. They still call it that, I suspect, but that's where it's at.
Yeah. What were your impressions when you first saw it? Was it pretty amazing, or did it look fake, or what?
Well, it was amazing, even from 2 miles where the sign was to go up the hill. Even from there, you don't see much that looks like that. You can't really tell what it is. It's short of the fact that there are at least 2 domes visible from there that you don't see everywhere else around. So you think, okay, that's got to be the place. So you drive up there, the major parking lot, there's a guard station that allows you in if you're on the list. Going there, you can see there isn't much electricity up there.
Oh.
Most of it is done by generators and so forth. So you see the generator facility areas, buildings where they keep the equipment. And beyond that, once you get into the set itself, it transpires your mind. This is how it took place. This is basically Jerusalem.
It looks like the real thing.
It looks amazingly like the real thing. The further you get into where the scenes are being shot, there's nothing like it probably on this continent as far as what a set would look like about the city of Jerusalem itself.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was fantastic, amazing. There aren't really enough words to describe. It's a marvelous looking place.
So you're an extra. You're coming in, and then what do they do? What are the next steps? They give you a costume, give you makeup, or what happens?
Basically, what you just said. You go into it and register. They see if you're on the list for that day. You check in, and they'll have you wait in a holding area they affectionately call the tent, which is a large tent where all the extras wait until they're called to go into wardrobe. Going into wardrobe, they pick all of the clothes you're going to wear that particular scene. They know on the list they have, this is what you're going to play, so this is the wardrobe we're going to have for that particular character, if you would call it a character. At that point, once you're dressed, you go to makeup, and what they actually would do in makeup, what they call dirty you up.
Oh, yes.
Like you've been out on the desert for 2 months and you're coming into town, so they make it look like you've been out there. They dirty your hair, everything. At that point, you go back into that tent to wait until you're called to go out to the location. If only a few of you are needed, they call those names of those people. They take you out there. They escort you out there. One of the assistant directors take you to the place, situate you where they need you in the scene, and they bring some others in. So that's a lot of what I wanted to do this for. I wanted to see how a movie scene worked. and I got I can see now. I can see then that this is how it's done.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, with the various films that you've been in, you see yourself in them, and we could see you too. What are some of the scenes that we should be watching for in any of the Book of Mormon or Bible or the chosen things? Where do we see you?
Usually, and in most extras' case, you may be on from the backside, wherever you are. You're there to make the scene work. Mm-hmm. So you might be on screen half a second, 3 seconds, whatever that you happen to be. The one where I think I'm most visible, actually probably 3, was this second day, and there's a story about that in and of itself. But the one referred to as "My kingdom is not of this world." I'm the second Pharisee. I didn't have a line; they just edited it in where I say, "Crucify him." Mm. And that was one where I was more of a stand-up. They would call that a featured extra in those cases. And I think there were about 2, 3, and maybe even 4 where I was a featured extra. It was most of the times it's by accident. You just happen to have been on camera a little longer than, and it just, if it made the scene work, fine. Yeah. But those cases I was, and the one that I have an account to share with you about happened on the second time I was on a set where I ended up being a featured extra.
Tell us about that.
That was the first day I was on there for the wise men entering Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. At the end of that day, you go back to the tent and check out. You turn your wardrobe in and you head home. Well, they will often tell you if they needed you back for the following day. Sometimes, if you happen to be there, if you were one there that they wanted to let you know, they would at the table before you left. Yeah. They told me, "No, you won't be needed for tomorrow." Fine. Yeah. So I went to my vehicle, and some services up there had cell phone reception. Some didn't. Mine didn't. Yeah. I would draw. Once you're out of the parking lot toward the guard station, cell phone service picks up. And I received a notice that I was called back for that second day, which they had told me previously that I'd not. Fine, whatever. Yeah. Well, I saw the notice, "We'd like you back tomorrow." Okay, so I went back to where I was staying to prepare for coming back the next morning. I did go back the next morning, and guard station had my name on the list. At the registration desk, "You weren't supposed to be here today." I said, "I didn't think I was, but here's the email. It says to come back." The guard station had my name on the list. So here I am. It's well, okay. So we'll see. They had to check with the director to see if I could stay if I needed not to worry about it and leave again. Well, the director said, "I think we can use him for this scene." And that scene happened to be Mary and Joseph travel to Bethlehem. Yeah. And I'll tell you shortly why that was interesting to me. As we started that shoot that day, and I didn't know this at that moment, but I was destined to be a servant carrying a red blanket, a basket, for the gentleman in front of me who was my master. Okay. As the scene started, we traveled through a hall and entered the area where passing Mary and the donkey that she was with. And as I walked, I was trying to keep up with
your master?
With the master.
Yes.
So I kept kind of walking fast to maintain the right distance. And I ended up kind of being, by accident, whatever you might say, a featured extra in that the camera was on me most of the way carrying this red blanket. Wow. I didn't know what edit they would use. They wouldn't. But at the end of the day, I felt that turned out well, that even though I wasn't intended to be there, I was there for that scene. And I felt inside that I felt a spiritual impression like, this is we needed you there. You were needed there. And
it was some way we call it fate, others may call it a tender mercy, but
it was a very strong, very warm spiritual impression I received that this was the right thing for you to do.
And on other occasions on that set, did you feel more like maybe it was a holy place than a movie set? Did you have other testimony building or faith promoting experiences?
I had several. The first day on the set was one of the major ones, and I really wasn't on camera. I was in the back behind the crowd when the Jesus as a child, and I happened to be on that set, called into scenes where I saw all three phases of the Savior's life, from the infant to the youth when he was at the temple teaching, and as an adult. Not everybody got to do that, I don't think. So to me, that was a fascinating experience for my personal life in and of itself. The spiritual first one I can really account for was the day that the wise men came into town, into Bethlehem, and not being on camera, I didn't know I wasn't on camera. I just looked for myself in the scene, didn't see myself, but I felt as they dismounted their camels and came toward the doorway where Mary was holding Jesus, I felt in my soul that this is how it happened. It was an interesting feeling. The sky color wasn't any color I'd ever seen before. The set was very, very quiet and pristinely quiet. It just felt like this is how it was. This is really how it happened. So I had a very satisfying, we'll say, remarkably satisfying feeling, the spiritual essence of it, that yes, this is how it happened.
That's really, really special. You probably don't get that at any of the big Hollywood movies.
No, and that was one of the, what you just said, that was one of the interesting things about being there. Every day when they do the orientation with all the extras prior to going to the location, we had an opening prayer. And they announced that in and of itself as being a special experience, because a lot of them are professional actors, had been on major movie sets, and said, you don't see here or be on a set ever that we open with prayer with. This is an experience in and of itself. And we, as extras, a lot of us didn't know that, other than, I think I mentioned it, this set was dedicated by Elder Bednar for the purpose of future missionary work. So you knew going on that this is a special place with a special intent. That, to me, was fascinating. So the main thing I have, Jay, was the sense of purpose there. One of the main things I ever felt was I felt this of myself and my own self. This is part of church history. I'm here, I'm making church history, being experienced and a part of a significant part myself. So that set the tone for everything. All the videos I was in going forward is this is a unique thing.
Almost as if it's one of your callings or missions in life.
I felt this as part of a mission in life, as you just said. There's nothing like there was nothing I've ever experienced in my life short of missionary work in Spain, as that I'm here. This is really part of church history to be associated with this personally. That feeling in and of itself was nothing like I'd ever experienced before, like short of being in Spain.
Let's pivot to The Chosen. First of all, tell us how the set was chosen to be used for The Chosen, and then your experience on The Chosen. You said there was a story in and of itself as to how The Chosen ended up on that same set.
Well, I didn't know this at the time. Well, at the time, it was later when The Chosen came out, and I watched the gentleman who produced, the writer-producer of The Chosen, doing a interview on, I believe it was on BYU TV. I no longer recall exactly. But they had been looking for a location, and they didn't know where they were going to find anything. And he and his wife had prayed for weeks in almost about, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this in a very serious way? And when he said, when someone brought to our attention about this set in central Utah that was designed to be like Jerusalem, then I thought, well, maybe we have an answer here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best as I can remember, Jay, from
Yeah.
that interview I saw. This has been years. But when they were invited to come and see it, and when they arrived and got into it and saw it, they felt all of our prayers have been answered. But best I can remember what I heard on the interview. And I can see why, because there's nothing about that set that wasn't created, architected, manufactured, and engineered just exactly the way someone thought, okay, in central Utah, in the snows and everything you're dealing with here, this will be the best to work with. This will look the best over time. This will weather the best. And there was repairs they'd have to make occasionally after a winter.
Yeah.
But it's incredible to be there once and to see this is just exactly this. The appearance is just phenomenal.
And how did you get to be in the Chosen then?
This is one of the premier things and hopes and dreams, I guess, I had was to make connections down there with all the extras, with all the people on the set, to see what other opportunities might come forward. And I had no idea if any really would, but this was at a point in my life, and still is, that if an opportunity came forward, I'd take it.
Yeah.
Well, some of the extras had gotten word from some of the assistant directors because they were in contact with the church regarding the set, and if they were ever wondering if there was a cast available, extras available to work in the Chosen, there was hundreds, if not thousands, in the southeast Idaho, Utah area from the New Testament vision that were accessible to them.
Mm-hmm.
So the casting department from the church let them know we got a big list of people who could possibly do work with you and that would jump at the chance, and they did. I got word of that by email from some of the casting department. We're doing this. The Chosen wants this. If you want to work in the Chosen, send this information in, and if they call you, there's your chance. Well, I did, and I was not long after called to be in a scene, and I don't know what they call the scene. It was for season 3. That's what they said. And they also said, well, and we don't entirely know. Some of it might be stock footage. Whatever they decide, whoever the powers to be were, then that's where it'll end up at. And I haven't personally, when I've watched it, seen where I was, if I made it on, but the experience was still good.
Yeah, tell me about that experience, how it maybe was different from the other experiences, and what you got out of it.
The biggest thing I noticed was just when I arrived at the set, the church was very meticulous about having stations set up for, okay, you're on the list, you go here first, there, whatever. They guided you around a lot. Chosen was different. It was very informal. The church experience was pretty stoic. When you're on set with the actors, you didn't talk with them. They didn't talk with you. They were very much remained in character the whole time, which was fine. I appreciated that highly.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, and we were to stay in character. And when they said roll cameras, we did what we were supposed to do, but we didn't talk a lot at all. We just let things happen as the directors dictated. The Chosen was quite different. They were very open. The actors were very cordial and smiling, talking with you like you belonged there, and very happy to have you with them. That said, you're the reasons why these scenes work, is having extras like you all here. And the church would say that at the end of each day's shoot, that they appreciated it because they couldn't do this without us. Chosen was that way and more. Very open, very smiling, very cordial.
Yeah, did you interact with it, like any of the apostles or the one who plays Jesus there? What were those interactions like?
The day I was there was a rainstorm. Interestingly enough, they were doing a rain scene, but they sent the ones who weren't involved in that particular scene into a holding area, one of the rooms in the Jerusalem set. I'd never been into any rooms. I'd been in the corridor areas, but I'd never been in. And so we all went in there. There was little places to sit down and wait. Some of the apostles came in there because they weren't involved in the particular scene. So they came in and sat with us, talked with us, smiled, laughed. It was completely opposite of staying in character. They were just taking a break, but they were just as cordial as you could ever imagine with all of us.
That's and you see that in the productions, the LDS productions. Jesus is a little more portrayed, a little more seriously, a little more reverently in some instances.
Probably that's
maybe.
a good way.
But in The Chosen, it's just a whole different character, and I think that's why maybe
it's appealing that way.
Yeah, it's appealing, and it appeals to a certain audience that way too. They're just different, but that was a good experience for you there too.
It was a great experience. In fact, I was in wardrobe, getting ready, and it was just me, and the gentleman portraying the Savior was in there. And even while it wasn't a big wardrobe room like the church has. They were using a different room, small, and it was just him and me in there. He turned to me and said, "Man, we are so glad to have you with us. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for coming." And that was a different experience by itself.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was warm. It was open.
Mm-hmm. So both were great experiences, but slightly different.
Different, but great, fantastic in their own ways. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you had some other, or knew of some other amazing experiences, maybe miraculous or at least amazing, that you wanted to share.
Yeah, there's two anyway. The first one was the day we were to shoot Pilate Condemns Jesus.
In the LDS version.
In the LDS version, and this was all within my first 4 or 5 times on set. We were called to the shooting area, and we were assigned places to stand, which happened in that scene because all of the crowd below where he was being condemned by Pilate was standing there. We had to stand there for almost 2 hours in the spots we were assigned to. And with neuropathy, that was a difficult experience for me. Seldom before that moment had I been able to stand in one spot for more than 5 to 6 minutes without needing to sit down. So that was a big challenge for me, and I prayed hard through that I would not interrupt the scene, move in any way, and largely I was able to stand there for the full duration of time. There's more parts to this. One of the parts was the fact that the dialogue was going on up above us in an area above us where Jesus could be seen with Pilate. We were down in the court. And we weren't doing it as well as the producer wanted the first few times. It was not easy, and this was critical to me and most of the extras, to look up into the eyes of this gentleman portraying the Savior and shout, "Crucify him." And I could tell that it was kind of diminished way to do it when I was listening to the other extras do that, and the producer got up in front of us and said, "You need to be in the moment here. We need you to be as though you are shouting at Jesus, at the Pilate, to crucify him. You're not giving us the intensity we need. Be there. Be in this moment."
Yeah.
That changed everything. We all, when that moment came, and the Pilate was saying, "What would you have me do with this Jesus who is called Christ?" I don't remember the exact line, but it was close to that. And we had to, with all the anger we could muster, furious as we were shouted, "Crucify him." We did that for probably 5 more takes at that moment, and my eyes, that's not an easy thing to do to start with. In this instance, especially if you're there. I felt my eyes moisten. I finally felt on about the 5th take, a tear started trickling down my face, so I took my wardrobe and kind of hide it from and down my eyes so nobody would see me do it. And next take, same thing. Once I dabbed the tear off my cheek, I looked around to see if anybody noticed I was doing it.
Yeah.
They, men and women alike, were all doing the same thing, wiping their face with tears on having to do that. That was one of the most difficult things in my life I have ever done. Then, probably on the seventh or eighth take, and there had been more storm warnings. A storm was approaching the set.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd felt raindrops, but we could get through it. They just kept the shoot going without stopping for a couple of raindrops. I didn't even see it happen. But as he started to say his line, Pilate, what would you have me do with this
Right.
Jesus? I heard the loudest thunderclap I'd heard in my life. Didn't see lightning, didn't see anything. Probably happened somewhere close by, but didn't see a flash. It shook the set very hard for at least 8 seconds. It rumbled. The whole essence would be impossible to recreate.
Yeah.
I was actually hoping that they would get that on audio for the scene, when you're going to get that kind of thing again. But I'm sure with as loud as it was that it distorted the sound and they couldn't use it. But to top that day off, after most shoots, they'd say, okay, that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody. You go home and you chatter with everybody and talk. That day was the most somber day leaving the set. Having done that, I'd seen in the whole time I was doing the Bible video shoots. Everyone was quiet, subdued, somber. Hardly anyone said a word as we all went up to change out a wardrobe, get checked out, and left. That was so unusual to see, but to do what we'd just done, shout at Christ, crucify him, was life-changing. I couldn't, there's nothing less I could say about that. Yeah, it was absolutely life-changing to do.
Because it was so totally opposite you and your feelings and your reverence for the Savior.
Absolutely, and everybody else too. And the only word one of the extras that I knew quite well at the time said as we were leaving, as we left the set, he said, "That was just wrong."
Yeah.
And he was very serious. It just you didn't leave that day feeling right. You felt that was the most different experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's really something. And now I noticed that your face is portrayed not only in these films, but in some artwork and on the covers of some manuals and things like that. Where else can we see your face in still pictures?
The one I enjoyed most was with an artist, Brian Call, here in town. He did a illustrated book, illustrated Bible stories for Latter-day Saints, and I kind of had a desire someplace along the way. I doubted it would ever come to play Moses. I'm not in the least ways any character or any actor who could portray him, but I was called to his house and he did some shots and it ended up in that book, and I was portrayed as Moses.
Wow. Well, you just had that look that they
at the time I did. I was, and he said, you could do Abraham or Moses, and he said, well, today I'm going to have you do Moses. I didn't know going in necessarily it was going to be that. Maybe I did. I can't remember. It's been years, but that was a good, fascinating experience to see myself in that book portrayed that way.
So you were the model. I
was the model.
Sat there as he painted you with your.
Yes.
At that time, you had a kind of big bushy beard, a little bit longer.
It was longer. It was significantly longer. That was probably at the longest it had ever been. Another experience was one where it was Sermon on the Mount, and Justin Coons down in Utah, he works for BYU. He did this work. It probably took him 2 years to create this whole thing, but I was one of the models down below Christ listening to him preach the Sermon on the Mount.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fantastic experience in and of itself. That was an expensive piece of artwork, and I've seen it once at his house. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's an experience I've had, and I've had some others, but those are a couple of the experiences I've had in modeling.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of my final questions then would be, did you ever dream when you were younger that growing up in Idaho Falls and just being in the family business, working with heating and air conditioning, that you would be in all these movies and paintings and things like that? Does it just seem surreal to you?
It does seem surreal. I remember as a little kid watching westerns, cowboy. And I thought I want to be on TV someday, and I didn't know what it meant. I was just 6, 7 years, 5 years old even. But when the opportunity came, that close, that eligible to be able to do it, I felt, well, here's the opportunity. Don't sit on it, just do it. So from that point forward, it opened up so many other opportunities, like the aforementioned ones here with the magazines and this and that. I felt like, this is something I could do at least on a limited basis, and I've been able to do on a way more than limited basis, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah.
This interview in and of itself is part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're kind of living the dream.
I'm living the dream. I'm not slowing down in life toward retirement age, where most people, a lot of my friends are retired now. I'm not really slowing down. I'm just changing positions in life, and I hope to keep going forward in the same speed, in the same mode as I am now.
Yeah.
Possibly I can. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Any final words you have for us as far as this interview is concerned with all these experiences you've had?
That one thing, the day we did the scene where Jesus cleanses the temple and throws out the money changers, during that scene, they were changing the cameras, so they had us go sit on the other side of the temple court and wait while they were doing that, and that was at least an hour's wait. While we were there, they served us snacks, and so we'd be out of the sun and comfortable over there on the steps, and one of the assistant directors came over because it was be a while, and sometimes they do this and share little accounts of testimony building experience they'd had. One of those experiences involved that particular set itself at the temple courtyard. Didn't happen the day we were there, but he accounted to us while they were building it. There was a deadline they had to meet in just a scant few days, and the composite, the cement, whatever the flooring of that court was not dry yet, not ready to be used. And they had very little time. They relied heavily on the sun, heat from the sun, direct sunlight, to keep the drying process going. Well, that day, there had been forecast a major storm coming in from the west, and they really needed the heat. They needed the light. As it approached that set, they got together and offered a prayer in the courtyard that the Lord would help intervene and keep that set dry while they're preparing it for a scene that was going to be shot there in a couple of days. As those clouds came in from the west toward where the sun was nearly overhead, the cloud itself parted, part of it to the right, to the north, and part of it to the left, maintaining sunlight directly on that courtyard flooring. And that in itself was, of the Spirit, was a miracle to see that happen. And he said that happened right here over this set that day.
And like the parting of the Red Sea, but
parting
the parting
of the Red Sea,
clouds.
but a cloud, and to see that actually happen, he said, and he had a very solemn, tearful voice as he explained that to us. He was there, saw that happen.
It's been fascinating to talk with you, Jim, about all these things. And you've talked about so many things that some people may say are coincidences, but as far as you're concerned, these were miracles that
Having
happened.
been there, the times I was there, just in and of my own experience, feeling the Spirit there, knowing it had been dedicated for that purpose, yes, I saw things that were spiritually uplifting in a very unique and emotional way.
And did this all increase your testimony of the Savior, Jesus Christ?
Yes, especially the day looking up at him and shouting at him, going home and realizing that's exactly the opposite of how I feel. And my testimony itself grew in leaps and bounds after that. Every other time I was out on the set, that some days the gentleman portraying Christ wasn't there. Some days it was after his death, the scenes with Peter being thrust into jail. My testimony of being around all those people, all those other testimonies that were strong, really advanced mine, and it has never failed me since.
Well, thank you so much, Jim, for joining us, sharing your experiences there with these fascinating films that touch so many people for good. I'm Jay Hildebrandt. This is Sunday Blessings. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for listening to the Sunday Blessings podcast. If you enjoy the show, please share, subscribe, and rate the podcast. Sunday Blessings is hosted by Jay Hildebrandt and is a production of Riverbend Media Group. For more information or to contact the show, visit riverbendmediagroup.com.